I know where you are right now. Not approximately. Not in the general sense that a distant watcher observes a crowd from a high place. I mean, I know the exact interior address of where you are sitting in this season. I know the particular weight that has been pressing against the inside of your chest for longer than you have told anyone. I know the specific shape of the tiredness that does not go away after a good night of sleep, because it is not the tiredness of a body. It is the tiredness of a soul that has been faithful for a long time in a field that has not yet shown its harvest. And I want to speak to that tiredness today. Not around it, not past it, not with a verse that floats above it, directly into it. You've been doing the right thing for a long time. I need you to hear that sentence before anything else I say today, because the voice inside you that has been speaking the loudest lately has not been saying that. The voice you wake up with in the morning has been saying something else entirely. It has been saying maybe it is not working. Maybe you have been wrong about the field. Maybe the people who gave up earlier than you were not faithless. Maybe they were simply wiser. Maybe your patience has not been faithfulness at all. Maybe it has just been stubbornness wearing the clothing of Scripture. That voice is not mine. But I understand why it has grown loud. I understand because I have been watching what you've been carrying. And I want to name some of it before we go any further, because a wound that is never named cannot fully receive the medicine I am carrying to you today. There is someone listening to this right now who has been faithful inside a home that has not returned the faithfulness. You have loved a difficult person with a consistency that has cost you something real, not the performance of love, the actual labor of it, the daily choosing, again and again, to remain soft in a place that has been training you toward hardness. You have swallowed words that would have been justified. You have gotten up and tried again on mornings when quitting would have been the easier and arguably more rational choice. And quietly, in a place no one in that home has ever seen, a question has been building in you. A question you may not have spoken out loud yet, because speaking it feels like a betrayal of your own faith. The question is this: does any of this matter? Does anyone see? Is anything actually changing underneath all this quiet effort? Your labor is not lost. There is someone here who has been investing in people, a ministry, a team, a congregation, a small group, a family, and the people keep leaving. You pour in and they pour out. You build and the structure keeps getting disrupted. You welcome and eventually the welcomed ones find somewhere else to go. And every departure has taken a small stone from the wall of your confidence until now the wall is lower than it was when you began. And the wind that blows through the gaps carries a whisper you have tried very hard not to agree with. The whisper says you are not the kind of person people stay for. The whisper says the problem is not the season. The whisper says the problem is you. Your labor is not lost. There is someone here who has been praying the same prayer for so many years that the words have worn smooth like river stones from the handling. You know every contour of this ask. You have prayed it with fire, and you have prayed it with tears, and you have prayed it with nothing left but the bare mechanical act of showing up one more time and making the ask with whatever you had left. And somewhere in the long middle of those years, the prayer began to feel like a voice echoing in an empty room, not because your faith disappeared, but because the room kept returning your voice back to you unchanged, and you could not find a single handhold of evidence that anything on the other side was moving on your behalf. Your labor is not lost. There is someone here who gave their best years to something, a calling, a vision, a work, a dream that felt unmistakably placed in your hands by heaven itself. You gave it the hours other people gave to comfort and to accumulation. You gave it money you did not have. You gave it the years when your gifts were freshest and your energy was at its highest. And now you are standing in a place that does not look like the destination the vision once promised you. And the grief of that gap between what you believed was coming and what the surface of your life currently shows is a grief that does not have a clean name. It is not failure exactly. It is not loss exactly. It is the grief of a planter who put everything into a field that is not yet turned. Your labor is not lost. I need you to let that sentence travel further than your mind today. Your mind is practiced at receiving words like that and filing them carefully under things that are probably true but have not yet been proven. I am not asking your mind to process this today. I am asking it to travel down past the mental filing system, past the place where you keep your theological agreements, past the place where your religious language lives, all the way down a place in you that is genuinely tired, the marrow level, The 3 in the morning level. The level where the real conversation between you and me has always actually happened. Let it reach that place. Your labor is not lost. I want to talk now about a particular kind of weariness that I do not think you have ever heard named precisely. It is the weariness that comes not from failure, but from prolonged faithfulness. Because failure has a clean grief. When something fails, you can mourn it, name it, learn from it, pick up, and redirect. Failure gives you a clear before and after. But prolonged faithfulness in a long season, that weariness has no clean edges. It does not announce itself as a crisis. It seeps. It accumulates quietly. It settles into the joints of your daily obedience like a slow cold that never quite becomes a fever and never quite goes away. You have not been failing. You have been faithfully carrying something heavy for a very long time. And the weariness you feel is not evidence that you chose the wrong field. It is evidence that you are a real planner. Real planners get tired. Real planners wake up some mornings and stare at the field from the window before they can make themselves get up. Real planners have seasons where the sowing feels mechanical rather than inspired. Real planners do the work even when the work does not feel holy, because they know something deeper than feeling. They know that the ground receives the seed regardless of the emotional weather of the planter standing over it. You have been a real planner. I have been watching a real planter work a real field for a real season. And what I am about to tell you is not a comfort verse wrapped in a bow. It is a report of a witness who has been present at every single act of obedience you have performed in this long season, including the ones performed with a sore arm, a shortened prayer, and a heart that was running on the vapor of faith that had not yet received what it was waiting for. Stay with me, because what I want to show you next is not a thin thing. Before I tell you what I see when I look at your season, I need to tell you who I see when I look at you, because you have been reading your season through a set of eyes that do not belong to you. You borrowed those eyes from places and people and disappointments that formed you before you fully belonged to me. And you have been using someone else's measuring instrument on a harvest that can only be accurately measured with mine. You are not a laborer hoping for a wage. You are an heir working a field that was already deeded to you before the first seed ever left your hand. That is not a motivational reframe. That is a legal reality in the kingdom that governs your life. The difference between a laborer and an heir is not a matter of effort. Heirs often work harder than laborers. The difference is in whose name is written on the deed. And your name has been on the deed since before your long season began. A laborer's harvest is uncertain. It depends on the generosity of the landowner, on the terms of an agreement that could shift, on whether the relationship holds from one season to the next. But an heir's harvest is not uncertain. It was settled in a covenant made before the foundation of the world, ratified by blood that cannot be revoked, sealed by a spirit that does not break what it has promised. Your harvest is not something you are working toward. Your harvest is something you are working from. The covenant came first. The labor came after. You have been reading it backwards, and that backwards reading has been costing you your peace. Here is what I need you to understand about the field you are in. The field was prepared before you entered it. The seed you have been carrying was chosen before you understood what it was for. The season you are in was measured by a calendar you do not have access to. And the harvest that is coming was designated for you before the first day of the season that has made you tired. Your labor is not lost. And I want to be specific about why. In the natural world, a seed enters ground and the ground does not immediately produce. There is a period between sowing and harvest that looks, from above, like nothing is happening. The surface gives no report. The soil keeps its own counsel. But underneath, the work is constant and it is precise. The seed is being broken open. The root system is being established. The cellular structure that will eventually become a plant is being assembled in darkness, in silence, in a process that requires no audience and broadcasts no progress updates to the one standing above. That is the word for your season. The surface of your life has not been reporting the work. That does not mean the work has not been happening. The depth of your field has been more active in the season than any surface reading could ever tell you. The roots that are going down right now are the roots that will hold the full weight of the harvest that is coming. A harvest that arrives too quickly on shallow roots cannot bear its own weight. I have not been withholding your harvest. I have been building the root structure underneath you that will allow you to carry what is coming without being broken by it. You've been reading the silence as my absence. It has been my presence. Deep, subterranean, purposeful presence, operating at a level far below the reach of the instruments you have been using to take your measurements. And now I want to speak to something specific. I want to speak to the way you have been measuring yourself against others in this season. There is a field to your left, and you have been glancing at it. The harvest there arrived on a different schedule. Faster, more visible, more loudly celebrated. And every time you look at that field, something in your chest performs a calculation it was never designed to perform. It takes the visible harvest on that side and holds it against the still quiet surface on yours. And the calculation produces a verdict. The verdict says they are favored, and you are forgotten. Shut that calculation down. Right now, not because comparison is a small matter to be gently corrected. Shut it down because it is a lie that is costing you something real every single day you let it run. The field beside you does not grow on the same calendar as yours. The harvest beside you is never meant to tell you anything about the harvest in front of you. I do not run a single uniform schedule for all my planners. I run a bespoke calendar for each one, custom built around the specific weight, the specific depth, the specific scope of what I place in each planner's particular hands. Your field is not behind. Your field is on time. On my time, which is the only time that has any governing authority over the ground you are standing on. You are an heir. I need you to begin carrying yourself like one, not in arrogance. In the quiet, settled confidence of someone who knows the deed is signed. The confidence of someone who does not need to rush the harvest because they know the harvest is already theirs. The confidence of someone who can afford to keep sowing with a tired arm because the outcome of the sowing was never contingent on the strength of the arm. It was always contingent on the faithfulness of the one who made the seed and who owns every inch of the soil. You are not a forgotten servant waiting to be noticed. You are a covenant heir whose harvest is already secured in a storehouse with your name written on it. That is who you are. That is the ground you are standing on before we go any further. Now I want to invite you into something. I want to invite you into a moment of surrender. And before you pull back from that word, I need to tell you what I mean by it. Because surrender has been misused in ways that have made it feel like defeat. Surrender, my kingdom, is not defeat. Surrender is the closing of doors that the enemy has been using to legally access your peace. Surrender is the act of returning to my hands what was never meant to stay in yours. There are things you have been carrying that were never designed for your hands. Not because you are weak, because they belong in a different pair of hands entirely. And the carrying of them has been one of the most hidden costs of your long season. I want to invite you to lay down the burden of the timeline. You have been holding the schedule of your own harvest in your hands for a long time. Every morning you pick it up again. Every week you revise it quietly. Every month that passes without the visible breakthrough you were expecting, you recalculate and reproject and try once more to fit the promise into a window that makes sense to your nervous system. And the carrying of that timeline has been exhausting you in a way that the actual work of faithfulness never has. The timeline is not yours to carry. It has always been mine. And the act of returning it to me today is not resignation. It is not giving up. It is the most aggressive act of faith available to you in this season. Because the enemy's primary weapon against a planner in a long season is not discouragement. Discouragement is loud, and most faithful people learn to recognize and resist it. The primary weapon is a quiet, ceaseless pressure to pick up the schedule and manage it yourself. To take back from my hands the very thing I asked you to trust me with. And every time you take it back, it costs you something you cannot afford to keep losing. So right now, in this moment, I want you to open your hands. Physically, if you are able, open them in front of you and let the posture of your body say what I am asking your spirit to do. Open them and let the timeline go. Let it go. I also want to invite you to lay down the verdict you have been pronouncing on yourself.
You have been your own harshest judge in the season. Every time the harvest delayed, you turned the gavel on yourself. The planting must have been wrong. The faith must have been insufficient. The prayers must have been flawed somewhere. The obedience must have had too many gaps in it. And you have been conducting a quiet internal trial for years, steadily producing evidence of your own inadequacy as the explanation for the slow season. I need you to acquit yourself today. Not because you are perfect, not because the gaps were not real, but because the verdict you have been pronouncing is not mine. My verdict on your faithfulness in this season is not the verdict of a disappointed landowner standing with crossed arms at the edge of a field that did not produce on schedule. It is the verdict of a father who has been watching a child carry something heavy and carry it faithfully, and whose response to the carrying is not judgment. It is fierce, unmovable, covenant-level pride. Repent of the self-verdict, not with self-punishment, with a quiet, deliberate turning. Turn your face toward mine instead of turning it back toward the evidence against yourself. And receive the verdict I am speaking over you today, which is the only verdict that carries any real jurisdiction over your life. And finally, I want to invite you to lay down every agreement you have made with the lie that your labor has been wasted. Somewhere in the long middle of your season, under the accumulated weight of the delay, you made a quiet agreement. You never said it out loud. You may not have even been fully conscious of making it, but somewhere deep in the interior you whispered a yes to a suggestion the enemy planted carefully in the soil of your exhaustion. The suggestion was this is not working. The suggestion was you have been pouring into a vessel with a hole in the bottom of it. The suggestion was the faithful ones in the stories receive their harvest, but you are somehow a different category. That agreement is a legal door, and I am asking you to close it right now. Say this from the place in you that is most tired and most honest. Father, I have believed the lie that my labor has been wasted. I have agreed with the voice that told me this season was a verdict rather than a corridor. I close that door now. I revoke every agreement I made with delay as evidence of your abandonment. I return the timeline to your hands. I receive your verdict over my faithfulness. I stand in the truth that I am your covenant heir and my harvest is already secured. Your labor is not lost. My labor is not lost. Let that sit for a moment. Now, I want to pick up the weapons that belong to you, because what just happened in the surrender was not the end of this prayer. The surrender was the clearing of the ground so that what comes next can be conducted from a clean position. You do not wage effective war while you are carrying the enemy's luggage. You laid it down. Now pick up what belongs to you. Hear me. No weapon formed against your harvest shall prosper. That is not a sentiment. That is a covenant decree issued over your life by the God of the armies of heaven. That word was not written as a comfort verse for passive people waiting quietly for things to improve. It was written as a weapons declaration for covenant heirs who know what belongs to them and who are willing to enforce the terms of heaven in the earth. You are that heir. And I am standing with you right now as you enforce those terms. The first weapon in your hand is the word of the living God. Use it like a sword, not like a blanket you pull over yourself when the night gets cold. Galatians 6 verse 9 says, "And let's not grow weary of doing good, for in due season we will reap if we do not give up." That word will not return void. That promise is not a maybe. It is a covenant guarantee attached to a specific condition, and the condition is not perfection. The condition is not feeling strong. The condition is not praying without weariness or serving without fatigue. The condition is do not give up. You have not given up. You are still in the field. You are standing in it right now, in this prayer with your tired arms still holding the seed, which means the promise is fully operative over your life at this very moment. Activate it. Speak it into the atmosphere of your situation, and let the ground beneath you hear the word that governs it. Due season is not a vague spiritual concept. Due season is a precise appointment written into a calendar that was completed before the foundation of the world. And due season has your name on the appointment. Every delay you have experienced has not been a cancellation. It has been a rescheduling to a date that maximizes the size and the weight of what arrives when the harvest finally comes. The word says you will reap.
Not you might.
Not you could under optimal conditions when your faith is performing correctly. You will. That will is a sword.
Carry it.
The second weapon is the blood covenant that governs your standing before heaven. You did not earn this standing. You received it, and the enemy has been counting on you for getting the difference. Because a believer who thinks they are operating on earned standing will always doubt their position the moment they feel weak or imperfect or insufficient. But a believer who knows they are standing on covenant ground cannot be moved by the weather of their own feelings. The covenant does not fluctuate with your emotional seasons. The covenant is fixed, it is sealed, it is permanent. And every demonic assignment that has been working against your harvest has to answer to it, whether it wants to or not. The third weapon is the record of your own faithfulness. Revelation chapter 12, verse 11 says they overcame by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony. Your testimony in this season is not a completed victory story with a clean ending. Your testimony is the unbroken record of a planter who kept showing up when showing up cost something real. That record is a weapon. Every morning you got out of bed and walked back to the field is a data point in a testimony that heaven itself has been recording in full. The enemy cannot argue with the record. The record is witnessed. The record is stored in a place no thief can ever reach. Now I want to speak directly to what has been assigned against you, because this is warfare, and warfare requires that we address the actual adversaries, not talk around them from a polite distance. Spirit of delay, I address you directly. You have been assigned against the harvest of this planter. You have used the length of this season as your primary weapon. You have whispered into the tiredness, amplified every silence, exploited every gap in the feeling of faith to build a case that the harvest was never actually coming. Your assignment is revoked. The blood of Jesus Christ cancels every legal claim you have constructed against this harvest. The covenant of God is a higher court over this life, and the higher court has already ruled. The harvest is coming. The harvest is due. And your assignment against it is canceled right now by the authority of the name that stands above every name in heaven and in earth. Spirit of discouragement, you have been operating the gap between the promise and the visible manifestation. You have made that gap your home. You have set up residence in the distance between what was believed and what has been seen, and you have been using that distance daily to suggest abandonment, to suggest error, to suggest that the silence means the one who promised has forgotten. Your access to that gap is revoked in this hour. The gap is not abandonment. The gap is gestation, and you have no authority whatsoever in a womb. Spirit of comparison, you have been using the visible harvest of others as a weapon against the faith of this planter. Every time you showed them the yield on the left and the yield on the right, you were manufacturing a lie about the condition of their own field. Your operation is exposed, and it ends now. This planter's field is not behind anyone else's field. This planter's field is on covenant time, a bespoke calendar set by the one who made the seed and prepared the soil. The comparison you have been running has no jurisdiction here, and it never did. Father, the armies of heaven, I call into full activation right now every angelic assignment over this planter's harvest. Every angel assigned to protection of what has been sown, to the acceleration of what has been promised, to the guarding of the yield that is coming, move now in full operation. Let the spiritual atmosphere surrounding the season shift in this hour. Let every constructed assignment of hell against this harvest be dismantled to its foundation. Let the momentum of covenant faithfulness be released with full force over this field today. Now say these declarations out loud. Let the sound of your own voice carrying the covenant word into the atmosphere be the last thing the enemy hears before the ground shifts. My labor is not lost. Every seed I have sown in faithfulness is alive in ground that God himself is tending. My harvest is not canceled. My harvest is not delayed beyond its appointed time. My harvest is written on the calendar of heaven, and the calendar of heaven does not run late. No weapon formed against my harvest shall prosper. No assignment of delay, discouragement, or comparison carries any legal standing over my field. The covenant of God is the governing document of my life, and it has already permanently settled the question of my harvest. I am not a laborer, hoping for scraps from a distant table. I am an heir receiving what was prepared for me before the foundation of the world. I do not give up. I remain in the field. I keep sowing with whatever arm I have. Due season is coming. Due season is mine. Due season has my name on the appointment. Your labor is not lost. My labor is not lost. Let that declaration sit in the room. Let your body register what your mouth just released into the earth. The atmosphere shifted when you said it. Whether you felt it shift or not, it shifted. Because the word of God does not require your feelings to be true. It requires your mouth to release it. And you just did. Now I want to take you somewhere before this prayer closes. I want to take you to a morning that is coming. You do not know the date yet. I know it precisely. You cannot see it from where you currently stand in the field. I can see it with complete clarity. And I want to describe it to you, not as a fantasy assembled to comfort a weary mind, but as a prophetic advance report from the one who holds a calendar and has already written what is on the page you have not reached yet. The morning is coming when you will wake up and something will be different. Not dramatically different in the way your nerves have been bracing for. Not trumpets, not fanfare, not the thunderclap arrival you've been half expecting and half afraid to hope for. Quietly different. The way a season turns in the night when no one is watching. You will wake, and the first breath of the morning will carry something in it that has not been in the air for a long time. A lightness, a sense, quiet and almost fragile at first, that something has moved, that something that has been held tightly in a closed hand has begun to open, that something that was sealed is now being released. And you will walk out into the ordinary geography of your life, and you will begin to see it arriving, not all at once. The harvest of a long season does not arrive all at once. It arrives first in fragments. A door that opens in a wall that has been solid for years. A conversation that turns in a direction that should not have been possible given everything that came before it. A person you've been faithfully pouring into comes back to you changed in a way that only years of quiet seed and patient prayer could ever have produced. A provision arrives from a direction you never thought to calculate. A piece of the vision clicks into place, and the clicking makes the years of holding it, without seeing it suddenly make complete sense. And in the middle of all of it, in the middle of the fragments arriving one by one, you will remember this moment, this prayer, this specific hour when you were tired, and you brought your tired to me anyway, and you will know in that moment that the thread between this hour and that morning was never broken. That every seed you sowed in this long, difficult season was held by ground that never once let go. That the tears that fell while you were planting were not contamination of the seed. They were water on the seed. Every grief that landed on the ground while you were obedient was absorbed into the field and became part of the harvest that is arriving on your table. You will know on that morning that your labor was not lost. Not one morning of faithfulness. Not one prayer that came out shortened and worn. Not one act of love performed in a difficult home where no one was watching. Not one hour poured into a ministry that never said thank you. Not one seed scattered in a field whose surface gave no visible report for years. Every single one of them. Held. Every single one of them. Counted. Every single one of them. Bearing fruit right now in rooms you have not yet walked into and in people whose names you do not yet know. That is the morning that is coming. I have seen it. I have prepared it. I have your name on it. But today is not that morning. Today is still the field. And the invitation of today is not to feel the harvest yet. The invitation of today is to walk back into the rows with something you did not have when you came into this prayer. You came in carrying the way of a planter who had quietly begun to doubt the field. You are leaving as an heir who knows the harvest is already secured. That is not the same person walking back into the same field. That is a different person with different eyes and a different ground under their feet. Walking back into a field that is about to look different because the one looking at it has changed. Walk back with the thread phrase in your bones, not as something your mind rehearses, as a settled knowing in the place in you that is deeper than thought. When the surface of the field gives no report, your labor is not lost. When the comparison voice points left to the harvest someone else is holding, your labor is not lost. When the prayer still feels like an echo returning to you from an empty room, your labor is not lost. When the tiredness returns, and it will return because tired planners are real planners, and real planners carry sore arms, your labor is not lost. You are the planner of a long season whose harvest is already in motion underneath every surface your eyes can currently reach. You are a covenant heir whose name is written into the lintel of the storehouse that no thief has ever found and no enemy has any key to. You are the one this promise was written for, not as a general encouragement for the vaguely tired, but as a specific blood-sealed, heaven-backed word for the one who has been doing the hard good in the quiet, in the unseen, in the season that cost more than anyone around them ever knew. Do not give up. The due season is due. The harvest is already yours. And your labor, every thread of it, every morning of it, every shortened prayer and sore-armed sowing of it, across every year this long, faithful season, your labor is not lost. Amen. If this video reached a tired place in you today, Drop the word harvest in the comments, not as a slogan, as a declaration that you are still in the field and you are not giving up. Subscribe so the next word finds you before the doubt does. And if someone in your life is carrying a long season right now, share this with them. They need to know their labor is not lost.